welcome to another webisode of wellness.com, where we bring you expert health advice. Today, I'm in the company of Alia Virjee, and she's a registered dietitian. Welcome to the program, Alia.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It's good to be with you. So today's topic of conversation is BMI. My first immediate question to you is, what is it?
So the BMI stands for Body Mass Index, and it basically just defines your average relative weight for height. That's all it says.
So I've seen this word being thrown around a lot, especially in gyms. So when you sign up to get a membership at a gym, and the first thing they do, which is like a cool thing for them, is to say, hey, do you know your body mass index? Let's go take it.
Yeah.
What does that really tell us?
So the BMI is just an equation. So basically what they do is they take your weight in kilograms and they divide it by your height in meters squared. And what we have as a result is a number, and that number can get placed into one of 6 categories within the BMI index. We have 6. Only one of them is considered normal. So we have under 18.5, which would be considered underweight. Anywhere from 18.5 to 24.9 would be that normal range. 24 to 29 is overweight. And then anywhere from 30 to 40, you have 3 different classes of obesity.
And that raises the big question is, would it, as we start getting older and our weight goes up, is it possible to come back to those numbers that, it's easier to hit when you're in your teen years, or when you're younger and your metabolism is higher? Are those numbers realistic?
They're absolutely not. Quite frankly, I think that the whole BMI is not realistic. And I think, so a lot of the work I do with my clients is, talking about what is an appropriate weight for you, because that is different for each and every one of us. We can't really categorize people with this sort of blanket category and say, fit in there, whether you are 20 years old or you're 85 years old, right? That doesn't really make sense. So yeah, that's a great question. And I think often I'll have clients come in and they'll explain their experience with their physician. You walk in, you have that you step on the scale, it's a dreaded moment. The physician says to you, oh, according to your BMI, you're obese class 2, and you have this horrified feeling of shame, like you're doing something wrong. And really, it's just that, the BMI isn't telling us much. So I would love to tell a little bit of a story around how the BMI started, if that's okay.
By all means.
Okay, so I have a little timeline in front of me here because I want to make sure I get the dates right. So the BMI was invented about 200 years ago. This formula was invented 200 years ago by a Belgian astronomer, mathematician, sociologist. His name was Adolphe Cayley. Basically, he was kind of known for his ambition to define the ideal man. And in doing so, he sort of said, okay, I believe that the mathematical mean of a population is going to give me its average or ideal man. And so as a result of this ambition, he created this equation, this weight in kilograms over meters squared, right? To give you this number. And so his sole ambition was just to say, I need an equation to give me the average. He himself was not a health practitioner. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't in the health field. And he himself said that this equation should never be, or was not intended to be used to define a person's health or risk for health conditions. He just was using it to define what the average was. So this kind of cements into the population. The other thing I should mention is all of his measurements that he did in his calculation to figuring out the BMI, those were conducted primarily on white European men in France and in Scotland. So this leaves out women entirely. This leaves out every other race except for white people. So inherently, it carries a bias. It's a racist equation. So that's one thing I think a lot of people don't really realize is this was just created by white European men for other white European men. And of course, biologically, men and women are different in terms of our body composition. We have to be. So you can't categorize us all into one sort of grouping, right? So after that, you move into the early 1900s, and now US insurance companies are looking for a way to quantify their policyholders. And so now they're saying, oh, well, this is really handy. Let's create a table of weight and height, and we can place people here and define their risk, and that will help us figure out how much to charge our potential policyholders. Fast forward again into 1985, National Institute of Health sort of redefines the definition of obesity and ties it to personal BMI, which sort of solidifies now its use in public policy. Fast forward again to 1998, and now the National Institute for Health once again lowers the threshold for all those BMI categories. And that action really sparks sort of the public health panic around the obesity epidemic. So it kind of starts all the way back 200 years ago, planting the seed, having nothing to do with health. And it really transformed over the years. And now, medical professionals in medical school are learning about it. I learned about it when I was in school for nutrition. And so now we're starting to challenge that idea, because really we're realizing it has no place as quantifying anybody.
I mean, that's fascinating information. And it's always good to get sort of the backstory of how things become standardized. So thanks for sharing with us this piece of information, this gold nugget here. Quick question, Alia. Now that we know this story, should people be fixated by fitting into their BMI category? And doesn't that do more harm to people as they try to fit into those numbers rather than watching out for their real individualized health standards?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a very good point. We don't want to be focused on those numbers. That's, as we just explained, irrelevant. Instead, we should be focusing on the things that do impact our health. So instead of focusing on numbers like the BMI or what the weight is on your scale, the number you see on the scale, focusing instead on our behaviors, because our weight is not a behavior. So if we're focusing instead on whether we're moving our body most days of the week, whether we're eating plants, whether we're choosing whole grains, are we drinking enough water? Are we sleeping well? Are we managing our stress? These are health behaviors that are more indicative of our health status and our risk for health conditions, and not whether you're fitting into a random category on the BMI.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for sharing with us this information on BMI. It brings a lot of clarity. We'd love to have you back on the show and talking about other aspects of health and wellness when it comes to nutrition. If anybody wants to get in touch with you and reach out, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Tangible Wellness. They can find me on my website, tangiblewellness.ca, or at info@tangiblewellness.ca.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much. And thanks everyone for watching wellness.com, where we bring you expert health advice. Till next time.